Holy crap. Wow. AT&T won their case against the Justice Department and will be purchasing Time Warner for $85 billion. Begun the corporate wars have. In this video, I'm going to explain why this is so crazy and what kind of an impact it will have on your entertainment, including Game of Thrones and your Warner Brothers stuffs like Harry Potter and the DC movies. What is up, everybody? My name is Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. If you love DC movies, if you love comic book movies, if you love nerdy stuff, subscribe to this channel. That's mostly what we do here. All right, so let's get right into this news. Now, if you watched the show earlier today, the Nerdy News Rundown, I talked about the coming merger between AT&T and Time Warner. The Justice Department filed a suit to literally block this deal from going on, saying that it was an antitrust violation. And the news is now that not only were they not blocked, but there was no restrictions put on this deal whatsoever. There were a lot of people talking about even if this deal went through, there might be some restrictions, but no, none of that happened. None of that went down. It's completely 100% theirs. Time Warner literally is a huge winner in this case. Now, in order to understand why the judge sided with AT&T, I have to kind of explain what antitrust or monopoly laws are in general. A monopoly is, of course, when a company basically has no competition in a given marketplace, and the reason this is bad and against the free market is because then they will have no competition and they can charge their customers whatever they want. They can treat their customers like crap, and it doesn't matter because the only people that the customers can get that product from is that company. That's a monopoly, and antitrust laws exist to prevent that from happening. So let's just say everybody all of a sudden needed tennis balls. Tennis balls were a big commodity. They were very popular. Everybody needed tennis balls. Well, let's just say one company, let's call them Zed's Tennis Ball Company, what was so good and so profitable at making tennis balls that the three closest competitors to them, they bought them up. And now the only company that makes tennis balls is Zed's Tennis Ball Company. Now Zed's Tennis Balls can turn around and make crap products that really cut their costs down, and they can way overcharge for their product, and everybody needs their tennis balls, so they got to get the tennis balls, and Zed's Tennis Balls Company is the only one that get. Are you getting why this is a bad thing? So that's what antitrust laws are. That's what monopolies are. And in this case, what's really interesting is for the first time, to my knowledge, in the history of antitrust laws, the judge claims that the two sides of this argument are actually seeing both the marketplace and the future of business practices in completely different light. So let me try to break this down a little bit easier. So essentially, Time Warner has all of these little subsidiary companies. This includes Warner Brothers, this includes HBO, CNN, TNT. So a lot of those companies go on and make their own content. They have their own IP. HBO, of course, has Game of Thrones and Westworld. TNT has all sorts of, like, you know, proprietary TNT programming. I think they have the Conan show. You know, they've got all these different things. Warner Brothers, of course, has not only the Harry Potter film franchise, but of course, DC movies in general. And they also own the comic books. AT&T is a company that just owns a big network, and even though AT&T has their finger in many, many pies, primarily they are just a wireless network and a network company. So the big thing here is AT&T wants to become a company that has its own proprietary IP and has its own distribution channels to put that IP out there. And the big argument, the big reason that the judge decided that this case was not antitrust is because AT&T basically told the government they want to become a competitor to Google, Facebook, and Amazon. Now, those are companies that are massive in scale. They also have their own distribution and are actively working to develop their own IP. And so the case to me really represents like the future of media. This judge looked at the case being put forward by AT&T and said, no, I think that the marketplace is vastly changing in the future, and in order to be competitive and in order to have a better free market where there are actually more competitors, This company needs to acquire these assets to be able to compete with Google, Facebook, Amazon, and companies like that. It's pretty crazy and has a big impact on the future of media. So let me talk to that point just a little bit here. So the big thing that a lot of people are talking about now is that this is a signal to other big businesses to go buy out crazy. Now, in a lot of ways, this kind of stuff had already been happening. Netflix is spending so much money getting other IP, getting its own IP, developing its own IP, but also getting old IP and licensing that out. Amazon is in that same boat. They're developing IP. They're about to spend $500 million to get this Lord of the Rings show. Half of that is just to secure the rights to that show. And so these companies were already making these massive, massive purchases out there in media to try to battle in the next phase of what media is going to be. Mostly streaming services and, stuff on mobile, just different kind of content creation. So the one big thing is that the Fox Disney deal is very likely not to have any problems as far as going through. Now, this deal, as I said in the show earlier today, it's under the same kind of scrutiny that this deal with Time Warner and AT&T would be under, but now the precedent is set that the government is not going to just mess with people's stuff. So with that precedent set, it's very likely that whoever buys the Fox assets, whether it be Comcast or whether it be Disney, they're not going to get any trouble from the government. We could also see a situation now where other companies are trying to sell off either their assets or divisions of their entire company. So one that comes to mind for me would be Sony. I mean, what if Sony decided to sell off all of its licenses for property and its own intellectual, movie distribution rights? I don't know. I can just see a situation because Sony is another company that's having trouble competing in some ways with other big companies out there when it comes to media and content creation. The Sony movies, it's long been talked about Sony films, Sony pictures being absorbed by somebody else. And that seems way more likely now. In general, it's going to be so interesting to see what happens from here. What kind of companies are going to be bought? What kind of companies are going to be buying those other companies? What is going to be happening? As I said at the top of the show, begun the corporate wars. This is a signal to all these big companies. Get your chips on the table. The big game is coming in the next couple of years. You better buy in now. Now, lastly, and really most important to the nerds is, what does this mean for our IP? Well, I mean, it's way too early to tell, but I will say this. There's going to be new bosses essentially for everybody at HBO, everybody at Warner Brothers, and that includes DC movies. And so if I'm a big company and I just bought this other company, I'm going to look at the checks and balances and the books and see what divisions are in the red, what divisions are underperforming, and I'm going to make changes. I mean, that's just me, and I see no reason that AT&T will not do the exact same thing. I mean, they might formulate their own streaming service to compete. It's going to be really crazy to see the fallout from this. You could see new spin-offs being developed for Game of Thrones. Maybe there's way more Harry Potter stuff all of a sudden, a Harry Potter shared universe. So much stuff is possible now. My mind is blown. I want to know what you guys are thinking about this deal. Do you think this is the worst thing ever? Is this a really bad precedent? Is this super dope? And you're excited to possibly see more money pumped into these movies and these things that you love? Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.